In this video, we're going to be solving a quadratic equation using complementing the square method. This is a very simple topic. Over here, I put up a set of rules so that you can remember it. You just need to remember this. It could help in your exams. You can just write it somewhere so you'll be able to do it step by step. The first thing is to move the constant to the other side. As you can see, 3 is the constant over here. Divide the equation by a, if you remember the formula. Ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Add b over 2 raised to the power 2 to both sides. You factor the left side by its squared and square both sides. You can take a screenshot if you want, or you can type it down somewhere. Okay, now let us solve this basic question before we move on to more complex ones. Okay, so we'll solve this now. The first step that says move the constants to the other side. So you'd say x squared plus 4x is equals to -3. Okay, you're done with the first step. The next step says divide entire equation by a. A meaning the first value. But over here we don't have an a. We do have an a, but it's an invisible one. You can't divide it. So we're going to skip that step because it's not going to make any impact. The next step says add b over 2 squared to both sides. So to both sides. And from our formula over here, what is b? B is 4. B is whatever comes before x. Okay? So we're going to say the formula says b over 2 squared to both sides, okay? So you come here and you say b over 2 squared. And what is b? B is 4. So you said 4 over 2. 4 divided 2, that's 2. Squared, that's 4. Okay? So that will be x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals -3 plus 4. Remember, we're adding it to both sides. This was what we got. Remember how we got this? From this formula. What we solved over here. Okay? Now, after that, it says factor the left side by square brackets to raised to the power 2. What does that mean? I just want you to know that for you to be able to do this next step, whatever it is that is here is basically the half. Okay? And when you see squared, basic math, if you see something like x squared, you already know it's x raised to the power 2. So you open your bracket, put a square, because that's what I said over here. You put your x. Remember, it is the half. Whatever half of it is basically what it's going to be. Okay? Plus 2. Okay? And you say equals -3 plus 4 is 1. For you to be able to check if you're right even in the exam hall, remember, just times the both of them. Come over here. Plus 2 squared, remember, squared, just times it by itself. Okay, you say xx, that's x squared. Xx, that's 2x. This, that's 2x. This, that's 4. Which is x squared plus 4x plus 4. And that's what you have here. Okay? It's as easy as that. And the next step says square both sides. We're going to be squaring this side and this side. And we can have two answers, which is why we're going to be using the plus and minus sign. Okay? So we're going to square both sides. We're going to say x plus 2 raised to the power 2 squared is equal to square root of 1. Okay? So now the square, we'll cancel the square. So you're left with x plus 2 is equals to 1. Remember, plus or minus 1. So now you can have two answers. You can either have x plus 2 is equals to plus 1, but you don't have to add a plus, or x plus 2 is equals to negative 1. But 2 is still over here, okay? So we're going to say, let's just do it for the plus only. We're going to say x is equals 1, negative 2 to the other side, which is x is equals to negative 1. Okay? So it's as easy as that. Okay. In this next video, we're going to be looking at how to solve this quadratic equation using this rule. It's as easy as that. Let's start, okay? The first one says move the constants to the other side. Basic math. 3x squared negative 18x equals negative 6 is equal to the other side, okay? The next step is divide the entire equation by a. Remember from the formula? Now we have an a, okay? Now we're going to divide the whole side by 3. Okay, this divide this, divide this, divide this, okay? So we're going to have x squared raised to the power of 6x equals this divided by this, negative 2. Okay? It's as easy as that. The next step says add b over 2 squared to both sides. We have our b. Okay? We just come here, b squared, b over 2 is per 2. And our b is 6. So that's 6 over 2 is per 2. That's 3. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 raised by 2 is equals to 9. So remember, I need to add to both sides, okay? So you would come here and say x squared negative 6x plus 9 equals negative 2 plus 9. Okay? It's as simple as that. The next step says factor left side by bracket raised to the power 2. Okay? So now, remember, it's basic math. And also half of what is here. Okay? So we would say, remember, squared is going to be x negative half of 6 is 3. 3. And now if you solve this, just like how we solved this, you would get the same answer as this, which is equals to 7. Negative 2 plus 9 is equals to 7. The next step says square both sides. Now, when you square both sides, you say x negative 3 squared and 7 squared. The square cancel each other, so now we have x negative 3 is equals to plus or minus square root of 7. It is not a perfect square, so we're just going to leave it like this, okay? Now, instead of you stressing yourself and saying x is equals to, you do it one by one, negative, you're going to say 3 plus 7, or x is equals to 3 negative 7. You can just leave it like this. You can just say x is equals 3 plus or minus square root of 7. Okay? This is the more efficient way. So that's how to do the second step. In this video, we're going to try and solve this quadratic equation using complex and the square method. Okay? And if you remember from the formula, ax plus bx plus c equals 0. And if you remember the rules, the first rule says take a constant to the other side. We're going to have negative squared negative x equals negative 7. Okay? Now the next step says divide everything by a. We have our a. Okay? Our a is negative 1. The negative over here. So basically over negative, and over negative. Okay? So the negative, they'll all cancel each other out. We'll be left with x squared plus 6x equals 7. Okay? Remember the next step. Add b over 2 squared to both sides. And over here, our b is 6. Remember, 6 over 2 squared. 3? 9. Okay? Remember, 6 divided by 2, 3. 3 raised to the power 2, 9. Okay? So that'll be x squared plus 6x plus 9 equals 7 plus 9. We're adding this to both sides. Okay? Remember, the next step then said factor the left side by this. So we would say, open bracket this, x, remember, half of whatever this is, and half of that is what? 3. Okay? Then we'll come over here, 7 plus 9, 16. Okay? Then the next step said, square, we're going to be squaring both sides. Don't forget your positive and negative sign, okay? So basically squaring both sides. This would cancel this. Square root of 16 is 4. So we have x plus 3 equals plus or minus 4. Okay? Or you can leave your answer like this. Or you can write it individually, or how you want. Well, that's the final answer when you have x as the individual. Okay, so this is the last example I'm going to give. Okay, let's just be quick with it, okay? Remember, take the factors to the other side. We'll have 4x squared, negative 20, x equals 7, okay? Now, the next step is to divide, from the formula. Ax squared plus bx plus c is equals to 0, okay? Okay. Now, the next part, remember, we're going to divide every root by 4, just very quickly. So we'll have x squared negative 5x equals, remember, carry 7 to the other side, equals negative 7 over 4. Remember, carry these to the other side, so we change negative 7 now, divide everything by 4. Okay? So now, next thing we'll do is to, add this to both sides, squared. Okay? So basically, it's going to be 5 over 2 squared. Negative 5 over 2 squared. Well, it's still going to cancel that out. Since you can divide, 5 times 5, 25. 2 times 2, 4. So we're going to say x squared negative 5x plus 25 over 4. Remember, we're adding it to both sides, okay? So that'll be 7 over 4 plus 25 over 4. Okay? Now, what's the next thing to do? The next thing to do is to, to the left part. Okay? So that is going to be, remember, is the half, whatever it is, half of it. So this squared. Okay? So that's going to be x negative 5 over 2. Half of this is 5 over 2. Okay? If you want to say this, half of 5 is 2.5, right? And 2.5 in fraction would be 5 over 2. When you do 2.5 plus 2.5, which is 5, your fraction is 5 over 2. That's how I got this 5 over 2. Okay. Then you'd say equals. This and this is the same denominator. Negative 7 plus 25, 18. The next step, remember, square both sides. So we're going to square both sides. Okay? This will cancel this. So we have x negative 5 over 2 equals, what is the square root of 18? 9 times 2 is 18. So we're going to say 9 squared and 2 squared over 2, the square root. But now this can still break down again, but this can't, okay? So that'll be x 5 over 2 equals 3 square root of 2 over 2. Plus or minus. Sorry, don't forget that. I always forget that. So now your final answer would be x equals 5 over 2 plus or minus 3 square root of 2 over 2. And that's basically it. Oh dear.